Pharaoh's thoughts. My time is coming to an end. I know the signs and I feel it in my bones. The priests want me to make preparations, but I have steadfastly refused to commission the building of something that will proclaim the glory of my reign or of my supposed divinity. And supposed it truly is. I knew that from the time of the first campaign that I commanded. We were outnumbered and on the verge of defeat when the man visited me. He had come to my tent at night, and I was alarmed that he entered despite the guards outside. I slept surrounded by our army, but he managed to get through to me undetected. I clutched for my sword, fearing an assassin, but my arms refused to move. I meant to shout out, but my tongue remained stuck to the roof of my mouth. A fear that I had never known before seized my heart, and I tried to run, but my legs did not obey. I wondered if he had poisoned me, whether I was about to die. He spoke to me then, and the pounding in my chest slowed. I could breathe again, but could move nothing else. I was forced to lie still and listen. He told me to not lose hope and to think outside the rules that we set for ourselves. He told me many other things, but I cannot remember them now. I wish I had written them down, but I had far more urgent things to do at that time. The man left as suddenly as he had come. Slowly, the strength returned into my arms and my legs. Just as well that it did not return to my tongue first, or I may have called out. As it happened, I had to use gestures to get my guards to understand. My commanders had assembled at my tent before I had full control of my voice. They took hardly any time to grasp my plans and relay the commands. Horses' hooves were wrapped in cloth before their riders set out, and the soldiers were instructed to move in silence. Especially the musicians were confused that they were placed in the vanguard. They must have been afraid, but they did not falter. We took up our positions, and a lighted arrow arced high into the sky. The riders lit their torches, and the hills around the battlefield blossomed with a multitude of campfires. Our trumpets sounded, deafening in their proximity, and were deafened in turn by the roar of our men. Cymbals and drums amplified the sounds of sword against sword as we charged the sleeping camp. We attacked their fireplaces, any place that had light, and doused the flames. Some fought, but most of those who tended the fires did not stand a chance. We then withdrew in the darkness without allowing the enemy to sense our retreat. We formed cordons around our musicians who kept up their barrage of noise. That and the darkness did our work for us, as men barely awake jumped to their weapons and fought any who approached. We maintained the darkness by directing a rain of arrows at any flame that was lit. We drew back before dawn and reformed with our chariots who had advanced to meet us. I had meant to sweep into their lines with the sun shining into their eyes, but I did not give the order. The enemy had fought each other through the night and stopped only when the strengthening light revealed brother killing brother. Their dismay was compounded when they turned to find our entire army arrayed against them. too close for their surviving archers to make any difference. I rode out then, against the advice of my commanders, to make them an unusual offer. I shouted out that those who laid down their arms would not be harmed. Our wars are fought with no hope offered to the defeated. Prisoners are either executed or enslaved. Some victors go to the extent of hacking off hands so that their scribes can count the enemy dead and alive. This ensures that the story of their victory is magnified in the kingdom's records, and that the enemy who survive will never bear arms again. I chose another way. I rode down their line, repeating my words, but the hair on the back of my neck prickled. I was a fool for exposing myself and my charioteer to any well-aimed arrow, but I was here now, and there was the slightest of chances that we could take the day without further bloodshed. Exhausted though they were, those dispirited men with weary arms did not move. Steeling myself to make a run at the first sign of trouble, I rode down their line once more, calling out my ultimatum. A horn sounded, and it was not one of ours, and I knew that they were being rallied. We did not wait to find out. My charioteer raced for our lines. I turned around to face the enemy. I did not want an arrow in the back, and I did not want them to sense my fear. Their horn sounded once again, and our enemies formed up their lines and lowered their spears to meet our charge. The horn sounded a third time, and I stopped my charioteer. They were laying down their weapons. Our soldiers found it equally strange when I passed down the command that none of the prisoners were to be harmed. I set our prisoners free as we collected all their weapons that day and the next. I then did the next strange thing. Instead of returning home to celebrate the victory, I ordered our army to follow the prisoners. We overtook many as we marched into the lower kingdom, but not all. Those who went ahead passed on my offer, and most of the skeleton garrisons surrendered without a fight. Those forts that barricaded their gates, we just bypassed as we pushed on to the capital. We reached before the majority of their defeated army, and their king sent emissaries to plead for peace. I did not halt our advance to join any dialogue, and our soldiers filtered into their capital like a rising tide. Rather than create a vassal state, that victory unified our nation. The manner of the victory made union easier. One people, ruled by one king, expanded our resources vastly. The defeated soldiers were absorbed into the enlarged army, and as Crown Prince I led the campaigns that pushed our boundaries ever outwards. 5 years of securing our borders left us with a highly trained army that would follow me anywhere. They cheered when I ascended the throne, and I turned my attention to the people of the land. Security brought about peace, and in turn, peace engendered prosperity. Starvation became a thing of the past. Their arts and the sciences flourished. My people had never known such a time of plenty, and they began to worship me as the blessing of the gods. That is when the man visited me again. I woke up from my sleep to the sound of wind, and there he was, standing next to my bed. I recognized him this time and rose to pay obeisance. But he stopped me. We talked that night, and once more my horizons were expanded. Years have passed, and I have come to realize that we like to be our own gods. We acknowledge greater powers only when faced with the limitations of our own. All our external gods are expressions of our limited understanding of the one I consider our source and our destination. His power is described in the form of a great warrior, his kindness as a mother, his providence as the sun or the river, and his protection as a different kind of mother, one full of vengeance and wrath on our behalf. There is so much more. We sense some traits and create more gods to convey what we perceive, whether it be out of fear or gratitude or supplication or whatever. But the one for whom I have no name remains the one. No one and nothing can claim his place. Who am I to give him a name? I banned the worship of the Pharaohs and have decreed that no monument was to be erected for me. If it lasts, this people and their civilization will be my legacy, not some statue or building in stone. And my name will not matter. My people and their greatness will. Our way of life may remain for centuries, or we may vanish without a trace. Whatever, as long as our cup of life is full to the brim and more, and that we accomplish all the good that we are capable of. The priests grumble that I dishonor the old gods, but none dare raise their voice. They find it difficult to sense the unseen one I worship, but I force no one, and the mutterings fade like the river mist, recurring but without substance. My time is coming to an end. I know the signs and I feel it in my bones. I have made many mistakes. I think I have done some good. My messenger has never visited me again. I hope I have not disappointed him or his master.